Welcome, Warren. Thank
Jack,
you for coming by. We're with Warren Howe, and this is part of our legacy series of leaders in sports medicine and exercise science, so thank you for participating. So I wondered if you could start off a little bit of sort of where you're located now and what you're doing in your career, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, I live in Bellingham, Washington. I've been there for about 15 years. I'm on full-time staff at Western Washington University, and I'm the team physician at Western Washington University. It's a university of about 13,000 students.
And before that, how did you end up at a university like that?
Well, I was in private practice on an island in Puget Sound, actually the longest island in continental United States, now that Long Island in New York has been declared a peninsula by somebody.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And you're speaking of Whidbey Island, right?
Yeah, interesting. Speaking of Whidbey Island, interestingly, I was born on Long Island in New York, but got to Whidbey Island and was in private practice there for 21 years. Before sports medicine was becoming an increasing part of my interest, and so I wanted to make it more full-time, and that's essentially what I do now is full-time sports medicine.
I see. So you're located in, what would it be, student health complex, or what, services, or what is that called?
Well, I'm attached to the Student Health Service.
So do you see students as well, or do you just pretty much focus on athletic?
No, I see students, and almost all of those are referred for sports-related or athletic-related, activity-related problems.
Okay, so there's other physicians in your group that see other
about
things?
5 or 6 full-time equivalents.
Okay. So jumping back then, born in Long Island.
Born in Long Island.
Where did you go to undergrad?
Went to undergraduate school at the University of Rochester in New York. Then went to medical school in St. Louis, Washington University.
Did you play sports at all in college, or?
I didn't. I wasn't very good. I played a little bit of high school basketball and warmed the bench most of the time.
Right. Okay. And then you ended up in St. Louis. That's a great school, Washington University.
Yeah, the education has stood me in good stead.
Yeah. Did you, what did you do your residency in then, after your MD degree?
Well, I interned at Philadelphia General Hospital in Philadelphia, which is a large charity hospital which no longer exists. It went the way of most charity hospitals when Medicare and Medicaid came along. And so I interned there, and then I went in the Navy for 3 years and was stationed for a year in Southern California and the Western Pacific. That was in the Vietnam era. And then was stationed for 2 years in Scotland on a submarine tender.
So you were working as a physician that whole time?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Okay. Actually, that's where I got my start in sports medicine, because one of my collateral duties as a physician in Long Beach, I was assigned to a destroyer squadron, but we didn't have enough to do on the ship when we weren't at sea, and so I was assigned collateral duties at the naval station there in Long Beach, and wound up taking care of several Marine softball teams.
Oh, and what year was that, Warren?
That would have been 1966, 67.
Okay. So you get out of the Navy. Then what?
And then I went to my residency back in Rochester, New York.
And that was in family medicine?
Practice.
Okay. And then how did you get to Whidbey Island? That's a big jump.
Well, it is. And the reason I got to Whidbey Island is because while I was stationed in Scotland, I really liked the climate. And the only place in the United States that's got a climate like Scotland, Western Scotland, is the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
So I was looking there, and found a practice there and joined up with another doc, and we had a successful practice for a long time.
So you were a family physician in a small town.
Right.
So you were doing it all, probably.
Pretty much. pretty much. We had a small hospital which opened just shortly before I went into practice there, about 30 beds. And
what was the name of that?
that was Whidbey General,
Whidbey General.
located in Coopeville, Washington.
Okay. Is that the only hospital over there?
It's the only hospital on the island.
Yeah, okay.
And it's in danger of closing at this point because it doesn't make its payments, what with Medicare and all.
And Coopeville is, what, north
Right
island?
right in the middle of the
Right,
island.
okay, so you're getting people from up and down the island coming in.
Right, right. Most of our people came from Oak Harbor, from the north end of the island.
Okay, okay.
And yeah, we did it all. There was an itinerant orthopedist who showed up now and again, and but we did fracture care, and
Did you deliver babies as well?
I did obstetrics.
So I bet in your career then, Warren, you've seen from birth to high school graduation, the whole way through.
Yes.
And you probably did team physicals and the whole bit.
Yeah, they didn't have any kind of organized medical care for the high school team or for the school district in Oak Harbor, and so I took on that role. That was a fun role. Got to know a lot of people and met a lot of very, very good people. Some of whom I still hear from. I hear from their children now.
Wow, that must be so heartening to do. And you raised a family there too, I would imagine.
Raised 2 daughters. Yep. I proposed to my wife shortly after I made my arrangements to go into practice on Whidbey Island. I met her in Rochester and proposed to her by asking her whether she would like to go live in Washington. She happily said yes.
I want to live there, but maybe not be married. So, when did you discover the American College of Sports Medicine along the way?
Actually, shortly after I got to Washington, I was, and at that time, there were no fellowships in sports medicine. There were precious few publications. I think of.
And this is when again? The mid '60s.
I started practice in 1972.
Oh, okay, okay.
Excuse me, 1971, September of '71, and there were no text. O'Donoghue's treatment of injuries to athletes was in its first edition, and let's see, Hirata at Yale had a text out on the team physician, but that was about it.
Yeah, Thorndike had an earlier one, but it had been long out of date by the time O'Donoghue came along in the '60s.
So I was casting around looking for how do I learn about these things, and I was interested in wrestling and predicting minimal wrestling weights at that time, which nobody else was very much interested in. But I heard about the American College of Sports Medicine. Actually, I was looking through the Journal of the American Medical Association, and the American College was listed as organizations of medical interest. And I noticed that their meeting their meeting that spring was going to be in Seattle.
Oh, for heaven's sake!
And so I went down to Seattle and went to the meeting, and signed up. The rest, I guess, is history.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. Did you find a lot of like-minded people in the organization that you could identify with right away, or
very few physicians
I wondered about that.
when I was first there. But I met at that first meeting I went to. I met Charlie Tipton. And he was a guy that I'd read about because I was interested in wrestling weights.
Right,
and of course,
that's
he was right there. And Wayne Sinning from...
He was at Iowa then?
He was at Iowa,
yeah, okay.
And Wayne Sinning from Massachusetts was also doing body composition and such. And these two guys who were well known in the field sat down with me and spent literally a couple of hours teaching me about this business. I was pretty impressed by that.
Yeah. Now, were you looking at the dangers of weight loss in wrestling, trying to make weight?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, and that was back in the days when the rules weren't in place. Coaches were using dehydration, rubber suits,
Right.
all sorts of what I thought were, and since it's been proved, fairly dangerous techniques.
And so one of the things that you touched on that I've seen looking at the history of ACSM has been the growth area of physicians coming on board. And I wonder if you could comment on what you remember. How did that happen? Was there a concerted effort on the part of the college saying we need to recruit more physicians? And were you involved in that at all, or how did that transpire?
Well, it wasn't initially a goal. The college was split into interest areas, and medicine was one of them. And there certainly was a desire to have more physicians involved. But what really evolved was that the physicians who were involved started to say, well, we need more clinical content in our meetings. And as more clinical content evolved, then more physicians came, and it then became a perpetuating thing. I was heavily involved in getting the clinical case presentation portion of the meeting organized. I don't forget where it was that we did the first time. I think it was in Chicago, but don't quote me on that because I don't remember. But we got that started, and that has proved a hit and has remained a hit.
And of course, like you said, that's more of a reason. Hey, there's something here for me now, from a physician's standpoint, to come. Before that, it was more of the science, and not so much of the practice.
Right. It's been really heartwarming to listen to the young physicians who are here now, who are complaining loudly that there is too much stuff. They can't figure out what to go to that's clinical because it's all overlapping and too much. And I say, that is a great complaint. I love it.
Right. You should have seen
Keep
it before,
it up.
when there wasn't anything. Now we have too much.
Right.
Well, so Warren, you're over at Coopville all those years, and you made a jump across the Sound to Bellingham.
Yeah, actually north, off the island.
Yeah. How did all that happen?
Well,
Seems like a great position to me.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect position. Sports medicine was becoming more important, but my practice was aging, as happens with every family doctor. The practice that you start with ages as you go along, and I was getting really tired of escorting lots of people to the grave.
Yeah.
It's very depressing. So I said I really want to start doing some more sports medicine, and started looking around. College health seemed to be a spot that would work in, and I of course had a lot of experience with young people because of my sports interest. And so I started looking around, and I actually looked at several places around the country to go, and then then Western, due to some things that had happened up there, said, we really ought to have a team physician up here, and so they let it be known they were going to be looking for one. I happened to run across that when I was at a meeting in San Francisco of the American College Health Association, one of the 2 times I've met with that organization, and ran into some people from Western who said, yeah, we're looking for a physician. And I said, well.
Fortuitous. So did they actually have a position announced at the time?
No, they never did. I actually pretty much defined the position.
Wonderful.
They'd never done this before.
And it's been, what, 15 years?
15 years now.
Wow. And so they never had a full-time team physician there on board?
They used community people. they had people from the emergency room show up now and again, and things like that. But there was never any consistent thing. The thing that got their attention was that they had an athlete who very tragically died of a cardiac condition that he had, and they had the feeling that maybe it could have been handled better, and they wanted somebody on board to do that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you get any help? That's a lot to do for one person.
I have 3 very excellent trainers, and I get a lot of support from the other physicians at the health center who pretty much pick up everything else that needs to be done.
Yeah. Do you travel with a lot of the teams then, Warren?
Just with football.
Football.
Football gets into such terminal trouble.
Yeah. That's another issue.
No, if I were to travel with, for instance, basketball, I'd have to travel with men's and women's basketball. I'd never be there.
Yeah, they're gone all the time.
So it works far better for me to be there and to have the trainers go with the teams.
So are these full-time regular trainers that are there all the time? They're not in and out or whatever, student trainers or whatever?
These are full-time ATC certified trainers.
Yeah.
When I arrived at Western, I sat down with the athletic director, and she said, "Now, I just want you to understand, I'm not hiring any more people." At that time, we had one trainer who was terribly overworked.
Sure.
And I said, "Well, that's okay, but just listen to me." And within 6 months, we'd hired a second trainer. And I kept on sitting down with the athletic director, and I kept on being told we weren't going to hire anymore. But then about a year later, we hired a third trainer. Mm-hmm. And they're still very, very heavily stressed.
Yeah, because you've got, what, 20-some teams?
We have 16 intercollegiate sports.
16, yeah.
And they're stressed, but they can get it done. We used to have a student trainer program, but that went by the boards when the NATA changed its rules about the internship programs no longer being appropriate education for trainers. Oh. And our university decided not to go the route of seeking accreditation of an academic program. Mm-hmm. I was a little bit disappointed in that. I would have liked to have seen that happen, but those are the decisions that have to be made. Yeah,
Rosemary Agostini and I were talking this morning, and she's trying to work with trainers in Seattle and high schools and so forth. And the same, one of the problems that you've alluded to is there's not enough coursework either that they have to take. Classes in exercise physiology or whatever being offered in the Northwest.
There's not.
And so that's another problem with getting good training staff.
Well, that was the reason why Western decided they didn't want to pursue accreditation, was they would have had to hire several new faculty members to provide the core courses that were necessary, and it would have been just too big an investment. The PE department, which is where the logical home for this would have been, was really unwilling to put that much of their resources into that.
Yeah. So we're sort of running out of time here, but one other thing. In your position at a university like that, Warren, how much do you report to the athletic director and how much are you on your own? My feeling is that your health center is its own entity. But do you actually have to report in any way to the athletic director? Or?
Technically speaking, I report to the director of the Student Health Center and I report to the athletic director. Strictly speaking, I pretty much interface with the director of the Student Health Center. Mm-hmm. The athletic director and I interface a lot, but there's not a direct reporting responsibility.
Yeah. In our just final moments, any thoughts about where the American College of Sports Medicine is now and where we should be headed in the future? Things looking bright? Things.
The American College of Sports Medicine's growth has been incredible. Starting out from that first meeting in the Olympic Hotel, where the plenary sessions were held in a small room, not too much bigger than this, and there was one breakout room, and that was it.
Was that the Seattle meeting?
That was the Seattle meeting
yeah.
that I started at.
Yeah.
To now where we are using most of this huge convention center.
Yeah.
And have so many concurrent sessions going. The membership has gone from in the range of maybe 2,000 members to almost 20,000 now. So it's been huge, and I think that while it's grown a great deal, unlike some organizations that with growth have become much less responsive to membership and much more diffuse in what they do, the American College of Sports Medicine has kept a very good eye on its mission and on what it's doing, and it's been very supportive of its members and presented them with wonderful programs. If they keep that up, which I would have every indication they will, I don't see any limit to what it can achieve.
Yeah, the potential is limitless, I think, at this point. And it's exercise science and sports is such a big thing that ACSM has located itself, I think, nicely.
Right, and the way that the college has served to integrate the basic sciences and the clinical expression of those basic sciences makes it so unique and so valuable in medicine that I think it's going to go very, very well.
Yeah.
I was very pleased with Bob Salas's emphasis on exercise as medicine, which it's not that's not unique to him. The editorial board of the Physician in Sports Medicine thought that up some years ago.
I remember they had T-shirts
Yes.
that said that on
Yes.
Warren. Yeah. Alan Ryan was telling me all about that.
Right. We told Bob about that. He hadn't realized that was.
Oh, he didn't know that. I've got some slides of the T-shirts. So.
But it's a great slogan, and it's very, very important, and it's totally neglected. So Bob, I think, has just added a new page to what the college can do nationally.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you, Warren, for
a pleasure
stopping by and chatting a little bit today.
That's a
Appreciate
pleasure.
it very much.
Thanks for putting some of this together. It's
It's
good.
It's fun.